So what's it called?
It's called UpStar Gold, made by AgriSeal, and it is This is 7.9% Bifenthrin, and this is 0.2% Bifenthrin. But because it's a granule, you're spreading more of it, and it stays put there.
Okay.
But as far as helping someone, outside, this will take care of fleas, ticks, spiders, scorpions, cockroaches, millipedes, centipedes, basically everything. Now, when you look at the label, and please, always make people understand they must read this label themselves. You and I can repeat it to them. We can tell them every word of it, but they must read this label so they understand how to put it out. There are things labeled on this that are not labeled on in here on the liquid, quite frankly, because of the application method and where you put it. Like, this doesn't show mosquitoes, but mosquitoes will not survive it once you put it in the yard, because it will be in the surface soil of the turf, and when the mosquito lay the eggs and the eggs hatch, the larvae die. So this will control mosquitoes in the yard, but ticks, fleas, of course, live in the yard. They live in the soil and in the organic matter, and it kills them the same way. So even though it doesn't show it on the label, on the granular, it will do everything this one will do. The mosquito fogging companies, the people that fog, that we sell a lot of steel foggers to, that is exactly what they use. And I've talked with several of our guys that come in and out of the store here, and they tell me that for 30 days there will not be a mosquito, that the 30-day residual holds up. I've seen that at my house. As I said, I've treated my yard and under my deck and around my house, and I haven't seen a mosquito in 3 weeks. I mean, 6 weeks. Right? That's why the first question I get, well, I've got dogs. Is it okay for the dogs? And I tell them, remove the dogs, spray. And if they're using this, spray with enough water that it wets completely. Let it dry. It's safe for the dogs. The same thing would be here. If I were going to, and in fact, in my backyard where I used it primarily, that's where my grandchildren play. That's their playground. Papa has built them a 8x8 sandbox, and they have a big swing set that I built, and they play there. I put this down and then took the water hose and watered it in myself. It's not a huge area, maybe 150, 200 square feet. But I watered it in so that it would go into solution. Once it dries, it's safe, and there's not any problem for children or dogs or cats or anything like that. Outside in the yard, in the soil, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And even in flower beds. One other thing that this has, that both have, but particularly this, the granular, is a systemic. It is a great systemic insecticide in that if you put it in the root zone of the plant, let's say you have a scale insect issue on azaleas or camellias or gardenias or something of that nature, this can be applied to the root zone of the plant, watered in. The plant will absorb it and then attack the insects from the inside out. Now, it's not going to happen overnight because it takes time to water it in, the plant to absorb it, and then it can be translocated up the plant. But if you give it 7 to 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, then you'll get control. You won't have any further spread of that scale insect. The granular product is a product that you would want to begin with in the spring, Andy. Okay. And that would be for soil insects, for grubs, ants, ticks, mites, spiders, fleas, any of that. So this would be something that you could start with in early spring, as the soil temperature warm up and the insects begin to move, depending on where you are, probably sometime late March, early April. And it'll give you 30 days residual control. So you're looking at using this roughly every 30 days, depending on weather. Now, with the weather we've had right now, it'll hold in this rain for 30 days. Last year in the dry, you probably could have gotten 2 months out of it because we didn't have any rain and we had that high temperature. But as far as anything outside in the yard, it can even be put down as a premises treatment around the house if they don't have a way to spray and they want that premises treatment. It'll do a fabulous job of stopping everything from a Jerusalem cricket to a German cockroach. It'll prevent those things from coming in the house. but this will actually control mosquito in the yard from the standpoint of the mosquitoes lay their eggs in the wet soil, and when they hatch and the larvae begin to feed, if that bifenthrin is in that surface soil, they're done. There will not be a mosquito. And many times we get as many mosquitoes from the soil. Most folks don't realize we get as many from the soil as we would standing water if you had standing water around. But this can be used to help you enhance your control in the yard, and then use a liquid, underneath decks, shrubbery, things like that. This can be used thresholds, and it can be used inside the house only as a baseboard and under sinks, behind refrigerators, stoves, and things like that. But this is a hard product, really hard product to beat in terms of meeting the needs of homeowners, especially if we could see this could be a tough year for fleas.
Yeah.
And I've already had a couple of instances come in the store, and we put them on the Bifenthrin to control the fleas. There's one other tidbit to this, and if you look on the label here, I don't know if it still doesn't have it on there. This is a termiticide. This is an excellent termiticide. So, in fact, many of your pest control companies are going to use this as a term. If you need to use it for a trench treatment, along a slab, you dig down 6 inches below your slab, you take the required amount of material, mix it in a 5-gallon bucket of water, and pour it in that trench, and let it soak back up underneath your slab. And that's the trench treatment. You can save yourself a lot of money because they charge $300 to $600 for the pest control people to do it. But this is an excellent termiticide too. An old barn, if you've got termites in a barn or powder post beetles, some of those things, you can go out there and treat it with that, and it will take care of it.
Awesome.
So it's a product that I'm glad we've got, and we can help our customers with.
So what's it called?
It's called UpStar Gold.
How does, in general, if I do my yard but my neighbors don't, what does that generally do to the population of insects in an area?
This comes from our mosquito control people. I have not had any problem with my neighbors. None of my neighbors do this. I do it. I've yet to see a mosquito. The mosquito control people tell me that they have seen it. It's almost like a wall, like a barrier, an invisible barrier. And in fact, one of our guys sprayed a house out in the woods, and they only wanted to go about halfway down the driveway, and they had a wooded driveway, not a quarter mile, but maybe an eighth of a mile out to the road, and they only went halfway down. Well, the wife and the daughter decided one day to walk to the mailbox, and they walked to the mailbox, and they passed that point where they stopped spraying, and the mosquitoes ate them up. And the lady called him back and said, "What'd you do? The mosquitoes ate me up." And he said, "Where?" And she said, "I went to the mailbox." And the gentleman told him, "Well, you didn't have me spray to the mailbox." So she had them come back, and they sprayed all along the road, all the way out to the mailbox, and they haven't been dead since. So it's almost like a barrier that if the mosquito comes there and they touch anything where that was sprayed, they're dead. And that's where the residual control comes in. But this is, if you do it, you spray your yard, you treat your yard, you treat under your decks and things, it doesn't matter what your neighbors do. They don't come across. I had another fogger tell me that he did a house in a neighborhood, and one of the neighbor next door kind of laughed at him, for spraying. And his wife happened to go over to the other house to visit, and noticed they were sitting out on the deck in the evening, and there wasn't a mosquito, wasn't a fly, wasn't anything, and they were getting eat up on the deck, 30 yards away, if that. And so she called and wanted them to come in, and the husband, no, that won't work. And so she had the husband come over, and he stood there. He said, "My goodness!" So they sprayed their house, and but they weren't getting any They weren't getting any migration of insects from one to the other. Yeah. Once they come into that treated zone, it takes them out.
Wow! Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
You're sure welcome.